I've been thinking a lot about female friendships lately as someone who currently has mostly female friends, and I'm proud of it. I kind of like have always had mostly female friends, but I did grow up in the 2000s and early 2010s, and so I had my brief I need to not be like other girls phase, as one does. It's a canon event for every woman.
Those white girl pumpkin spice lattes annoy me.
I'm in love. Name?
Senorita Awesome.
Freshman year of college, I decided I was going to try to befriend a bunch of guys. I think it was maybe the first semester, but I had this friend group in which it was just me and one other girl and a whole group of boys. And these 17-year-old boys, like, I realized were just really weird and kind of creepy and low-key misogynistic. And I distinctly remember like a month or two being into this friend group, me and that other girl were like, actually, like, maybe we just hang out by ourselves from now on. And then proceeded to do that. Never saw those guys again. Following that experience, I swung like heavily the other way where I became like a major girl's girl. I did have like some guy friends, but I like never searched for them. And I was always like, my girlfriends are better than my guy friends. And, you know, I felt like I spent the rest of my college really trying to cultivate like strong female connections. As an adult, I'm more neutral about the whole thing, especially living in New York City where gender lines are not as heavily defined. But I do work predominantly in fashion, so by virtue, I am surrounded by mostly women. And I also do think the concept of sisterhood is really important to me, so I do like end up investing more heavily into my close female friendships. With all that said though, because I have mostly girlfriends, most of my friendship breakups and fights have also been with other girls. And I've also had these like weird not friendships with other women where we'll hang out, seemingly have an amazing time, and at some point the vibe shifts for some reason and then we just won't hang out again. And if we like run into each other again, it's like kind of awkward. But nothing was ever talked about. It's all very confusing, and I don't think I'm alone because I've made videos in the past on friendship, mostly on TikTok when I'm just like rambling. But people tend to resonate with those videos, so I thought I would finally make a proper research video on the state of friendship for my YouTube family. Obviously, friendship is such a comprehensive topic, so for today I want to focus on why friendships feel transactional and why female friendships in particular are so hard to navigate.
Nearly everything I know about love, I've learnt in my long-term friendships with women.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I got my girls.
I know what it is to know every tiny detail about a person.
I bought special milk for you. I know where you hide your pills. Don't treat me like a 3-hour brunch friend.
I don't like what I am with you. We're like suffocating each other.
I find that I shed tears a lot with my intimate friends, not because I'm sad, but because I'm so touched and inspired by them.
I love you. Always. Oh God, I love you.
Pudgy, what's wrong? You look as if you haven't got a friend in the world. Oh my.
So let's talk about Charli XCX's Girl So Confusing remix featuring Lorde. This song became an instant success, especially considering that when Charli released the original Girl So Confusing, there was already speculation that the song was about Lorde. In the song, Charli reflects on her on-off weird friendship with an unnamed girl in which she can't tell if they're friends or if they're rivals. And it doesn't help that everyone keeps confusing them as being each other. People initially assumed the unnamed girl was Lorde because while I wouldn't say there was ever a major public feud between Charli and Lorde, there were a lot of media comparisons drawn between the two, mostly because of how they look. And one of the lyrics goes, "People say we're alike, they say we've got the same hair."
One of my favorite songs that you have is Royals. Where did you get the inspiration for that?
Royals came from, you know, just me looking at like how I'm from New Zealand, from like a small town, and you know, like I'm not really part of that bougie like lifestyle culture, so I thought I'd write a song about it.
In an interview with Rolling Stone UK, Charlee revealed that she used to compare herself to Lorde quite a lot. She said, "When Royals came out, I was super jealous of the success that the song got and that Ella got. You piece all this stuff together in your brain, like she was into my music, she had big hair, I had big hair, she wore black lipstick, I once wore black lipstick. You create these parallels and think, well, that could have been me. But it couldn't have, because we're completely different people. I wasn't making music that sounded anything like Royals. I think you just read what you want into it because you're feeling insecure about your own work." Charlie's lyrics to Girl So Confusing felt like an internal monologue that I've personally had like so many times before. Yeah, I don't know if you like me. Sometimes I think you might hate me. Sometimes I think I might hate you. When Lorde came on with her own vulnerable verse in the remix, it was healing. The song was no longer an internal monologue. It became a conversation, the type of conversation that many of us were too afraid to have with friends that we fell out with. It was therefore therapeutic to listen to in a way, to like hear that both people could be honest and were able to come together. Now the question is, was Charlie's decision to publicize her feud with Lorde based solely on interest in fixing the friendship? Maybe. Having been in lots of weird, confusing female friendships in my lifetime, I think being able to clear the air is always a plus, especially if it's with someone that you run in similar circles with. And music is often reflective of personal experiences, so why not write about this one? But I also think that Charlee is a very smart woman. She's been in the industry for a long time. She released her debut single in 2008. And I'm sure she's very aware of what kind of press would boost her album sales or improve her image as an artist. As she told Vulture in August, "Lying is so fun, so brat. Who made this rule that you have to be truthful and honest in the press as an artist? The press is just a tool." On that note, we've seen a lot of famous friendships come together and unravel on the public stage, but not many of them come back together after that initial unraveling. Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie, though, are the exception. In the 2000s, Paris and Nicole were literally everywhere. I remember actually being in middle school and two girls who were best friends in my class, they were both named Julia, would refer to themselves as Paris and Nicole as like a bit. Like these two women were idol-worthy, not just because of their individual fame and fortune, but also because their friendship was seemingly very organic. They met as children because their parents were friends, and then they went to school together in LA. And especially in the early 2000s, when it was common for tabloid magazines to pitch young women against each other, seeing two girls getting along was refreshing and sadly unique. In a 2007 interview with Harper's Bazaar, Nicole Richie was asked if the two of them were partners in crime. She responded, "Oh, definitely, definitely. When we were little, our parents always wanted to separate us. And I remember, word for word, them saying, 'It's not that it's me and not that it's her, it was the two of us together.'"
Please refrain from singing out loud or any interruptions to your fellow passengers.
Paris and Nicole ended up capitalizing on their dynamic by starring in a reality TV show together called The Simple Life.
Get ready to laugh, because the most anticipated new series of the season is next.
Help me!
It's the hilarious premiere of The Simple Life.
I actually rewatched The Simple Life last year, and it's exactly what you would expect from a mid-2000s reality TV show in terms of dialogue and behavior.
Thanks, bitch. Have a great day.
The comedy in the show comes from these like two rich girls struggling to adapt to a working class lifestyle. It's definitely not aged well, but it was a product of its time, I'd say.
Get over here really quick and take that down. That seriously is not funny.
The show ran for 5 seasons total, but hit a speed bump due to a friendship fallout between the two stars in 2005. Paris said in April that year, "It's no big secret that Nicole and I are no longer friends. Nicole knows what she did, and that's all I'm ever going to say about it." But for contractual reasons, probably, season 4 of The Simple Life was still a go, and the women just filmed like mostly separately. However, by 2007, somehow, some way, their friendship was back in full force and they filmed the last season of the show together. Paris said in 2007, "There was no reason why we were fighting, it was just silly. We believed what other people were saying. People are really two-faced in this town and they were trying to play us against each other. It made me sadder than any breakup with a boyfriend. It was just like the worst feeling ever. Since the show ended, Paris and Nicole have kept their relationship mostly private, aside from like sharing throwback photos here and there and commenting best wishes to major life events on Instagram. But as of May this year, the two have teased a new reality TV show together. There hasn't been much information released about this project yet, but they were photographed walking around in Sonic uniforms, which calls back to their fast food jobs in the first season of The Simple Life. You know, even though we don't know the intimate details about why Paris and Nicole fell out in the first place, I don't think it's crazy that they did. When you monetize a friendship, it does like change the nature of it. Natalie Beach, who publicized her friendship breakup with influencer Caroline Calloway, said, "Want to kill a relationship? Make it a brand. Monetize it. Real friendships are messy, dynamic, and constantly changing. Brands are curated, static, one-dimensional, and really only exist to make money. Pretty much the opposite of a real friendship." Even for non-influencers, entering a business with a friend can often lead to issues. In a publicized white-collar case, in 1995, CAA co-founder Michael Ovitz left the company for Disney after getting an offer from then Disney chairman Michael Eisner. According to journalist Stephen Galloway, the two men claimed to be besties, with Ovitz even rushing over to Eisner's bedside after his quadruple bypass just a year before. However, they had a fallout that later became public when Ovitz got fired in 1997. Galloway notes in his article that Hollywood in particular is a ripe place for loneliness. He quotes one producer who notes, "People come together for short periods, making a particular piece of content, and then moving on to the next. It's not the same for people who work in a law firm or the construction business and stay there for 30 years. He also mentions other factors in the entertainment industry, such as high social media usage, stress, uncertainty, overwork, the volatility of the workplace, narcissism, and competition. I have a lot of thoughts about this on a personal level, in regards of like friendships in the industry. These days, I'm really careful about friendship posting online. I used to post pictures of my friends like all the time because when I initially used Instagram, it was really common for people just to be posting like everything that they were doing, from like an old pizza that they were eating with the Rio Grande filter. I grew up in the climate where you overshared.
My left eye has conjunctivitis. My left eye has conjunctivitis. This eye has conjunctivitis. You can see it better here.
So I used to post pictures of my friends all the time, but the reason I've become more cautious in the past year or so is because I started seeing people on Twitter speculating about my friendships, particularly if I was friends with an influencer, which felt really weird. Also, most of my friends aren't even influencers anyway, and I feel like it's a breach of their privacy to show their faces to like hundreds of thousands of people, especially if they also have private accounts. Also, I just believe some memories are too precious to share with the world. So all to say, I've put more boundaries around my own friendship posting, but on the flip side, as a former Demi x Selena fan, I understand why it's interesting for a lot of people to be voyeurs in the first place. I even think it's fascinating meeting one of my friends' friends, because sometimes the way that they interact with that friend reveals another facet of their personality that I wouldn't normally see. You just feel like you're getting a fuller picture of someone when you're able to see them interact with different people in their life. There's also the fact that a lot of influencers will collaborate with other influencers to grow their following. And maybe the connection is real, but they also definitely farm their friendships for engagement. Like with the Sister Squad, I think that's what they were called, the Dolan twins, James Charles and Emma Chamberlain. I remember that was such a big moment on YouTube.
The Sister Squad, we're back, ladies.
In these cases, their friendships are entertaining to us because they are literally making them entertaining. As Samantha Leach writes on the appeal of friendship drama voyeurism, you might feel icky going down the rabbit hole of a private person's friend breakup, but when you've spent hours of your life watching a public set of besties on their girls' trip, sloppy nights out, and even sloppier hungover mornings, how dare they write off a character without explanation? A lot of celebrities don't like to post their personal lives, and so some of their friendship marketing is more strategic, such as in the form of a joint business. Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul, who starred together in the award-winning TV show Breaking Bad, went on to launch a mezcal brand, Dos Hombres, in 2019. While some cynics might believe the business decision was 100% marketing, in a Flaunt magazine interview, the two actors do seem to actually really like each other. Aaron said in it, Brian is one of my best friends on the planet. He's, of course, my mentor, and he's my son's godfather. My kids absolutely adore him. They call him Monkey Man for obvious reasons. I love the man to death, and I've said this so many times. I'm such a better actor because of him, and I have learned so much from him off screen. I can proudly say that I've become a better man because of him. It's true. I'm getting emotional talking about it, but it's a very true thing. So, while I think that the marketing is smart and leans into fans' enduring love for their TV show, there is something authentic about their friendship. Similarly, Ian Somerhalder and Paul Wesley, who played brothers on The Vampire Diaries for 8 seasons, joined together to launch a bourbon business called Brothers Bond Bourbon. Again, I think it's not odd that you would become really good friends with your co-star of several years of working together, but the marketing, calling the brand Brothers, it's all strategic. But you don't even need to be in a show together to create a profitable business together. As sociologist Olav Sorensen told Business Insider, most celebs have somewhat different fan bases, so a team up or a shout out can expand their reach. But every new venture also comes with risk. Maybe the product flops. So the other upside of a team up is that it allows the celebrity to split the risk. Some celebrities are so big that virtually every product they touch is guaranteed to be a success. Business Insider dubbed the Taylor bump to be the promotional boost that occurs every time Taylor Swift is associated with something. For example, Taylor allowed her song My Tears Ricochet to be used in the trailer of her friend Blake Lively's movie It Ends With Us. The trailer ended up generating 128.1 million views in its first 24 hours, becoming the biggest female-centered trailer in years. On a smaller scale, having an influencer friend boost your product will definitely guarantee at least a few more eyeballs you wouldn't have otherwise gotten from your own audience. Literally, I will always be grateful to Tessa Modern Girls, who boosted my Disney princess historical costuming video all those years ago, which ended up going viral and sealing my fate as a professional YouTuber. I'm sure part of why it went viral had to do with the subject matter, which was very trendy in 2020, but the initial traffic she drove to the video at least gave it a soft launch in the algorithm. For context, before that video blew up, I think I only had like 600 subscribers. I think at the time she had like over 50K. And I didn't ask her to do that favor. We actually became friends after that, but inevitably my life changed post making that video and post promotion. I think though that this game of content and business promotion can end up making a lot of friendships feel transactional. Even for non-influencers, influencer culture has trickle-down effects. As Kate Lindsay writes in her Substack, Embedded, instead of having a direct conversation with the few friends who post a comment to say, ask what makeup product we're wearing, and a picture, we broadcast the answer on Instagram stories. People have been asking, here's what it is. And maybe we include an affiliate link. The friends who reach out for connection are relegated to spectators. We end up not really talking to them at all. She goes on to write, it's no wonder then that Twitter routinely discourses about how asking a friend to do any kind of favor is emotional labor. An act of love becomes a professional favor. Why inconvenience a friend when you could just pay for a car? Why spend an hour talking to a loved one when you can sit silently in a stranger's back seat? I think doing favors is a really important part of maintaining and growing friendships. That's not to say that you should be taken advantage of, but friendships take a little bit of inconvenience sometimes. A lot of the turning points for when my friendships developed into like closer friendships were when we expended like a little bit more time and energy to help the other person. For example, one of my best friends and I, we only became really close after spending like 6 hours together waiting for an ambulance on a hot sidewalk after a window fell on her. God bless New York.
Concrete jungle, wet dream tomato.
Wet dream tomato?
Another friend I was already close to, but I became like even more appreciative of her after she removed a dead mouse from my apartment. It's also interesting that the term emotional labor has been weaponized in online discourse when the term actually originated in the workplace. Sociologist Arlie Hochschild coined the term emotional labor and defined it as the act of managing our feelings to fit some kind of organizational standard in a professional setting. The fact that the term originated to describe a workplace phenomenon shows in equating a friendship with professional exchange.
I'm sick.
Boo, you whore.
Do you remember in 2008 when Taylor Swift went on The Ellen Show and told the audience that her ex-boyfriend, Joe Jonas, had broken up with her on a phone call?
When I find that person that is right for me and he'll be wonderful. And when I look at that person, I'm not even gonna be able to remember the boy who broke up with me over the phone in 25 seconds when I was 18.
This was a very hot topic at my middle school. I remember we were like all horrified by the idea of someone breaking up with their girlfriend over the phone.
You can't keep getting away with this! You can't keep getting away with it!
None of us were in relationships yet. We were 11, but it still felt like insanely disrespectful. In 2019, Taylor reflected on the situation when she linked back up with Ellen on burning questions.
What is the most rebellious thing you did as a teenager?
Probably when I put Joe Jonas on blast on your show. That was too much.
Was it?
Yeah, that was too much.
Okay.
I was 18.
I mean, yes, she was 18, and it's not the most media-trained thing to put another 18-year-old singer on blast for a personal breakup.
This one even comes with a phone. See, so he can break up with other dolls.
But also, sadly, in today's world, a phone call breakup probably doesn't seem that scandalous anymore. Maybe you'd even be lucky to get broken up with a call. At least you can hear their voice. In 2011, Russell Brand texted Katy Perry that he was filing for divorce. And by 2014, Grad Psych magazine reported that a recent survey had found that 88% of men and 18% of women have broken up with someone over text. A lot of friendship troubles are also linked to text messaging. Independent UK reported that a third of adults have fallen out with someone after misreading text messages. They note a study of 2,000 adults in which 40% of them said they can spend hours puzzling over someone's wording or tone in a text, trying to work out if that person is actually annoyed or only joking.
Do you even want to hang out?
Do you even want to hang out? Oh, that's considerate. Like I said, whatever.
Like I said, whatever?
Psychotherapist Maggie McQueen wrote in an essay for NBC News about how a lot of her patients will read text messages in hopes that she can help decipher them. She also explains that when we type on a screen, we don't see how the person is responding in real time, so we can't see if they're hurt by what we're saying, and therefore it's easy to continue being angry or mean. Usually seeing how someone is responding to our words is one way that we can curb any kind of aggressive impulses. Which is also why I believe that a lot of people who write nasty comments online are people who definitely would never say that to someone to their face. Granted, humans have communicated facelessly for centuries through letter writing. These days, we associate letter writing with love letters or thank you cards, but people used to write letters to communicate all different moods. For example, William Burroughs wrote an infamous hate letter to Truman Capote in 1970. Here's a snippet. You have written a dull, unreadable book which could have been written by any staff writer on The New Yorker. As a writer, you are finished. Over and out. Not The New Yorker catching strays. I actually think that a lot of analog forms of communication and art, like digicams and vinyl players, are looked at very nostalgically today, but every medium has its own problems. English professor J. Willis Westlake wrote a guide on how to write letters in 1876, which he deemed necessary at the time because, I quote, "There has been no complete and systematic treatise on the subject of letter writing. When it is considered that in the art of correspondence there is much that is conventional, requiring a knowledge of social customs, which, if not early taught, is obtained only after many years of observation and experience." Similarly, I think that learning how to text comes from observation and experience. I grew up with the internet and I've seen so many different texting trends rise and fall. And I feel like I've generally been able to easily adapt to whatever's in fashion because I'm online a lot. But if you look at the way a lot of our grandparents text, it's strangely formal and a bit uncanny. Correct spelling and grammar are always just a suggestion to them. But even within one generation, people have different texting styles, which can lead to all sorts of confusion. I have my read receipts on. I know that's contentious, but I also don't always reply when I read a message, especially if it's a question that needs more time to answer. But the reason I'm comfortable doing that is because I don't give out my number that much anymore. So the people who I text know me well enough where if I don't respond for days, they're comfortable double texting me because they know I probably just forgot. Which is actually ironic because a couple years ago, I used to get really affronted whenever I was left on read. I'd be like, okay, this person hates me. They want me dead. And imagining myself now texting myself from a couple years ago, we wouldn't be friends. I'd leave myself on read. The Washington Post actually has a texting etiquette 101. They posted earlier this year that I really liked. I mostly agreed with like all of it. Some highlights: if you start a group chat, introduce the people in the group chat. I don't think this has ever happened to me before, and I think people should start doing it. Like if you start a dinner party group chat, it'd be cool if everyone was able to match names with numbers. Another point they made is no cryptic texting like "we need to talk" or even "what are you doing on Tuesday," which can make the respondee feel nervous. If you know the conversation is better to have in person or on a call, you can still give a clue over text, like "we need to talk about your mom's upcoming holiday plans. Give me a call when you can," or something, instead of just like, "hey, we need to talk." I'm biased again. Having grown up with the internet, I feel like I've been able to maintain my relationships just fine over texting, but I think it's mostly because the people who I text are also people I'm close to and who I share a lot of like similar texting conventions with. If anything, I think a lot of people my generation have gotten texting fatigue, which has led to a lot of ghosting and flaking.
It is genuinely so exhausting sometimes to respond to texts and messages from people, but all the time, it genuinely feels like I'm constantly fighting this battle to clear my notifications and just like make things settle down.
I think the idea of being constantly reachable because everyone's always carrying around their phone is anxiety inducing. And especially if you're not good friends with someone, it's easier to let that connection slide because it takes too much energy to keep a conversation going. Like when it comes to my Instagram DMs, I definitely give out my Instagram like way more than I give out my personal number. And I use that inbox on Instagram very loosely. Like I don't respond to a lot of things, not because I hate anyone or anything, but it's just like it's too many DMs. And a lot of the times the DMs are just like liking a photo, reacting to a story, but then it still shows it in a bold font. And so I'm still like aware, like I need to click on this. And even if I don't have to answer it, I still have to click. I mean, it makes sense. I don't judge anyone for having texting fatigue. But texting isn't the only technological tool that shapes a lot of our interactions. Venmo, a money transfer app, can cause a lot of issues. For one, it can make friendship hangouts feel transactional. As Tommy Bayer tweeted, rich people love to Venmo request you $4.72 for like half a bagel because they have no concept of money and don't understand that working class people operate under an economy of buying someone a beer. I currently owe around 23 beers to friends and I'm owed around 29 beers. Tammy Kim, Ting Zhang, and Michael Norton conducted a study in 2019 where they showed participants the Venmo transaction histories of two different people. Person A paid back their friends using round numbers, like $10, $35, and $20, while person B paid back specific amounts, $9.99, $34.95, and $20.06. The participants were then asked to pick who they'd rather be friends with, and 81% chose person A. Norton said of the findings, a retailer or a bank teller can say, this cost $22.11, and we can't just decide to give him $22. We have to pay the 11 cents. When we apply that same logic to our interpersonal relationships, like our friends and family, it feels like we're treating them like a retailer or a bank. It suggests that we see them as someone we need to settle our scores with instead of someone close to us. I remember freshman year of college, I was really good friends with this one guy who came from a very wealthy family. So whenever we had group outings, he loved putting his card down because he wanted the points. By the way, freshman year of college, I was 17. I definitely didn't know what credit card points were, and I don't think most people that age do either. Just to give you a sense of his financial literacy and his family wealth. But then periodically he would send us all invoices. And it was really weird. Like, obviously I wanted to pay him back, but there's just something about the delivery of an invoice that felt really sterile and like very transactional. Like, I'd much rather just pay back immediately after dinner or something, and then we forget about it, we move on. But I remember when I suggested that, he was like, no, it's just easier this way for me to add up all the costs at the end of the month. Aditi Shrikant wrote about why higher income people see friendships more transactionally for CNBC and interviewed psychology professor Hal Hirschfield. She posits the scenario. Let's say you're moving apartments. If you're trying to save money, you might enlist the help of a few friends. This favor signals a communal relationship. If you earn enough money to pay for movers, then this experience becomes transactional. Soon you might start to see the world in a more transactional way, Hirschfield says, and that will seep into your friendships. Where I stand on the owing money thing is that for close friends, I prefer to just take turns paying. Like, Obviously, there's a cap. Like if we're going to a more expensive restaurant, then we'll just cover ourselves. But I think the nice thing about taking turns treating is that it creates an expectation that we will see each other again because now you owe me a beer. The COVID-19 pandemic foots a lot of the blame when it comes to the rise of transactional friendships, but I think the pandemic just exacerbated problems that already existed. Namely, over the last several years, people started to shift their relationships online, which are colder and less intimate spaces. The economy seems to always be flopping, leading to higher financial insecurity, and the self-care industry is constantly growing, which as a side effect encourages people to prioritize their personal time and energy, even at the cost of supporting their friends. Another issue with Venmo is the surveillance aspect of it.
I saw it on your Venmo page. I'm not sure if you saw it, but I liked the transaction.
From a stalker point of view, a lot of people don't hide their transaction history, so you can literally see who your friends are hanging out with by nature of seeing who they're constantly Venmoing for restaurant outings and drinks. And this can lead to a lot of friendship insecurity. Like, why are my two friends hanging out so much together without me? Or, why does my friend always say they're busy when I ask them to hang out, but then I see them getting dinner with other people all the time? Find My Friends is also a terrible instigator for these kinds of insecurities. This is a built-in Apple feature that lets you and your friends share your locations with each other. And I used to have this feature on, and I ended up removing all my friends from it about a year or so ago because it felt kind of weird that people knew where I was at every waking moment. I get that it can be used as a safety feature if you're going home alone at night or as a fun way to see who's in your area if you have time to kill. But I think overall, we have so little privacy these days. Like, I don't need to be giving any more of it up. As tech reporter Scott Nover says, I see location sharing as the natural conclusion of the digital age expectation that we're always online, always available, and have no reasonable expectation of a private offline life. We're no longer just putting up an away message or occasionally checking in somewhere on social media, but broadcasting our whereabouts at all times.
What's happening now?
When you remove someone from Find My Friends, Apple does this amazing little thing where it slaps a banner over your text chat thread with said someone to let them know you've stopped sharing your location with them.
A profound silence has entered the chat.
This dreaded banner is what actually kept me from turning off my location for a really long time. I'm not sure what compelled me to finally do it, but when I did, actually only one person ended up asking me why I stopped sharing my location with them, which is great. I'm not sure if no one else noticed or no one else cared, or maybe some people cared, but they just didn't want to confront me. Like, I really don't know. I had a lot of people on there, and some of the people I'm not even good friends with anymore. And sometimes I wonder if these people thought that by turning off my location, I was explicitly ending our friendship. Transparently, there are very few people I actually dislike. But friendships drift all the time due to changing life circumstances and like scheduling conflicts. And sometimes I wonder if certain people feel like we're now enemies or something because we don't keep in contact as often anymore. Health journalist Melissa Dahl wrote for The Cut about how people hate uncertainty. She says, you could even argue, as some neuroscientists do, that your brain's most important job is to reduce uncertainty. Maybe that's why it's become so popular in the last 10 years or so to talk about cutting off friends who are toxic. That kind of decisive action feels psychologically safer than endless ambiguity.
Let's talk about how I cut a toxic friend out of my life.
There's also not a lot of guidelines on how to navigate friendships. They're kind of open-ended in terms of expectations. And even though there definitely is a limit to how many good friends you can have in your life, the idea pushed out is that you can always have more. And that's why it's sometimes more painful when someone doesn't want to be your friend.
I just don't like you no more.
Most people only have one romantic partner. We can't expect to be the chosen one every single time, but not to even be wanted as a friend, a relationship that's supposed to be an infinite supply. Ouch. But the truth of it is that there is a finite supply because we don't have infinite time to hang out with people. Also, close friendships can be really consuming. Melissa cites a popular TikTok where the OP said,
I feel like one of the main differences between a friend and a best friend is that a best friend will let you be the worst version of yourself.
I've also noticed this whole bury the body mentality, your best friend will help you bury the body, is often expected in female to female friendships because these friendship dynamics are often stereotyped in the media as being super intimate and supportive. There is, of course, some truth, right? Like in the 1990s, Ana M. Martinez Alamán conducted a study in which she surveyed female undergraduate students from diverse backgrounds at the beginning of their schooling and again after they graduated. She found that sororal relationship dynamics encouraged women to deviate from oppressive systemic forces, become critical thinkers, and especially in the case of ethnic minorities, empower each other. Another study from 2000 found that women are more likely to bond with one another during times of stress, stemming from our desire to promote safety and reduce distress. And another study from 2011 found that women with early stage breast cancer were much more likely to survive if they had a strong social group. Even if you didn't know about these studies, I don't think it's a new idea for any woman that female friendships are touted as being this like amazing sisterhood bond, a la that one quote from Sex and the City.
Maybe we could be each other's soulmates. And then we could let men be just these great, nice guys to have fun with.
Well, that sounds like a plan.
However, asserting this pressure to love and support unconditionally can actually be really harmful because it doesn't allow for any language on how to deal with conflict or the biggest friendship taboo, which is envy. Claire Cohen wrote an essay for Vogue last year that I loved about female rivalry. She's a professional writer and naturally became friends with other professional women writers. And she talks about one friend in particular who she's had for 20 years and who she discussed jealousy with from the jump, which ended up making their friendship stronger. Recognizing pain points can make for better communication. And also, I don't know if any of you have had these friends where you just like know that their problem with you stems from jealousy, but because they won't talk about it, it just becomes a series of passive-aggressive attacks that you end up getting fed up with one day and you just end up losing the friendship entirely.
Because that vest was disgusting.
You can't sit with us!
As journalist Kate Lever told Refinery29, treating friendship as though it is untouchable and eternal often does nothing but set us up for disappointment because inevitably, some or even a lot of our friendships will fail, fade from our lives, or end, either quietly or in conflict. I think there was actually a study that said that most people like overturn their friendships like every 7 years. So in this kind of anti-conflict climate, the idea that two women could work it out in the remix is something of a miracle. Whether or not Charlee and Lorde go on to becoming lifelong friends is really not the point. The point is that they gave words to a phenomenon that is mostly unspoken, yet plagues many of us, even if you're not a girl. As social psychology lecturer Dr. Jessica Robles says, the song resonates so widely because despite focusing on celebrities, it touches on a universal experience, uncertainty about others' feelings towards us. Uncertainty is big these days. Ghosting, flaking, and phubbing create environments of uncertainty. And because of modern technology allowing us to be more avoidant, I don't think these behaviors will ever go away. What we really have to change is how we deal with those behaviors. Like, if a friend flakes on us, I think it should be reasonable to reach out and be like, hey, this made me upset. And if they ghost that message, or, you know, if they're like, whatever, then I also think that we can just be at peace that we did what we could. And at the end of the day, some people don't want to work it out. And it's okay to not be friends with them anymore. I remember complaining to my mom actually about a friend ghosting me during a hard conversation, which admittedly was over the text. And my mom was like, well, you know, you reached out, you tried. People are not always going to act in the way that you want them to. People are always dealing with their own personal circumstances that you might not be aware of. And you just have to learn to be okay with it. But at least you tried. So thanks for the advice, Mom. Okay, this is the end of the video. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know what your thoughts are about the state of friendship these days. If you feel like any of this resonates with you or if you disagree with me on any points, I'd like to hear it. Okay, have a good one and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Because the only way to have a friend is to be one. And friendship is one of the most precious things in life.